In Japan, there are addresses that real estate agents are legally required to disclose. They have a name for them: Jiko Buken. Incident properties. By law, agents must tell every buyer exactly what happened inside, must say out loud what the walls absorbed, what the tatami and paper shoji screens held in for the hours or years before anyone knew. These houses sell for less than the others, sometimes much less, and they always find a new owner. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why most of them never find peace. Hi, this is Japanese Love. This is a show about places history refuses to release, forgotten communities, villages erased from maps, a past that people walk past every single day without knowing it's under their feet. But sometimes that past isn't underground. Sometimes it's right behind the door of an ordinary house on an ordinary street. Sometimes people are living in it right now. Sometimes you can book a night there. These are 11 of those addresses in Japan. Stay until number 1. It is the most disturbing location in modern Japanese history, and to this day, the police have never closed the case. 11. The Miyazawa Family House, Setagaya, Tokyo. We start at number 11, Setagaya District, Tokyo, a quiet residential street, the kind the city has thousands of. December 30th, 2000. Miyazawa Mikio, 44 years old. His wife Yasuko, 41. Their daughter Nina, 8. Their son Rei, 6. All 4 murdered during the night inside their own home by an unknown intruder. Here is what makes this case unlike anything else on this list. The killer did not run immediately. He stayed. After murdering the entire family, he spent several hours inside the house, ate food from their refrigerator, used their bathroom, worked on their computer. Investigators were able to partially reconstruct what he was doing online. Then he slept. He left in the morning when the light outside was just beginning to change. He left behind DNA. He left fingerprints. He left clothing. Investigators determined exactly what he ate, exactly what he browsed on the internet, exactly what clothing size he wore. They even established that shortly before the murders, he had likely been outside Japan, based on the bacterial analysis of collected samples. 25 years of investigation. The largest manhunt in Japanese police history. A reward of 20 million yen, the largest in the history of the country. No suspect. Not a single arrest. The house still stands in the Kamisoshigaya neighborhood. Every year on December 31st, flowers are brought to it. Investigators gather at its walls. Police hand out flyers at the nearest train station. The case officially remains open. The killer, if he is alive, is going about his life somewhere today. Somewhere. Possibly not far. 10. In Unaki Tunnel and the village that doesn't exist, Fukuoka Prefecture. Number 10 is a place that exists simultaneously in 2 realities. In one of them, it is a concrete tunnel in the mountains of Fukuoka, sealed with concrete blocks in the early 2000s. In the other, it is the entrance to a village that appears on no map. Let's start with what is real. 1988. A group of teenagers carjack a vehicle belonging to Umeyama Koichi, a 20-year-old factory worker. They drive him to the Inunaki Tunnel. For several days, they hold him there, torturing him. Then they burn him alive inside the tunnel and leave. The perpetrators were later sentenced to life imprisonment. The tunnel has been sealed with concrete blocks. The entrance is closed. That's the end. Now, what is harder to explain? Before the tunnel was sealed, dozens of people reported hearing screams from inside, that their phones stopped working long before the entrance. That compasses gave false readings. The local legend of Inunaki Village, a settlement supposedly existing beyond the tunnel, emerged in the Japanese internet in the late 1990s and became one of the most famous creepypasta stories in the country. At the entrance to the village, according to the legend, stands a sign reading, "The Constitution of Japan does not apply beyond this point." There is no village. There is no sign. The tunnel is sealed. In 2021, Japanese people were surveyed. Which place in the country do you consider the most frightening? Inunaki Tunnel came first. 9. Hashima Island, Gunkanjima, Nagasaki Prefecture. Number 9 is the only address on this list that is an entire island, and that matters, because what happened here was not about one person or one family. Hashima, an island 15 kilometers from Nagasaki. From 1887 to 1974, a coal mine operated by Mitsubishi. In 1959, more than 5,200 people lived on an area of just over 6 hectares. It was the highest population density ever recorded on Earth. Workers lived in concrete apartment blocks that now stand empty over the water. The island was called the Battleship. For the silhouette it cuts from the sea. Here is what gets spoken about less. During World War II, the island used forced labor. Korean and Chinese workers transported to Japan against their will. Deaths from accidents, exhaustion, and disease are documented. The exact number of victims remains disputed between Japan and South Korea, and it is precisely why Hashima's inclusion in the UNESCO World Heritage List in 2015 triggered a diplomatic scandal. Japan agreed to acknowledge the labor of the victims, but then, in the assessment of the Korean government, failed to honor that commitment adequately. Today, tourist boats run to the island several times a day. You can go, stand on the pier, and look at the empty windows of 9-story buildings. Understand that somewhere in those buildings are the belongings of people who abandoned them in 1974 when the mine closed overnight. And underneath all of it, the mine, and what happened inside it. 8. The Kobe child murders, Kobe, Hyogo Prefecture. Number 8 is the case that changed Japanese law, and the address that in Japan is not said out loud. 1997, the city of Kobe. A series of child murders. The victims were elementary school students. The severed head of one victim was left at the gates of a school with a note signed with the name Seito Sakakibara. The note contained a direct challenge to police. When investigators identified a suspect, it was a 14-year-old boy from an ordinary family living a few blocks from all 3 victims. This is where things become complicated in ways that Japan is still working through. Japanese law at the time established that children under 16 could not be prosecuted for criminal offenses as adults. The suspect's name was sealed. He was placed in a closed juvenile facility, released in 2004, and given a new identity. In 2015, he published a book under a pseudonym. About that period of his life, Japan's juvenile justice laws were revised after this case. The age of criminal responsibility was lowered. The house where the suspect lived was demolished. The school at whose gates the head was found was rebuilt. His real name remains officially classified, though journalists established it long ago. And the case has never been fully closed in Japan's collective consciousness. When the book came out in 2015, the country talked about almost nothing else for 3 days. 7. The atomic bomb dome, Hiroshima. Number 7 is a place whose history you already think you know. You don't. Not all of it. Before talking about what happened inside these walls, it's necessary to say what was left outside them. Hiroshima, August the 6th, 1945, 8:15 in the morning. The first atomic bomb. 70,000 people killed in the first seconds. By the end of the year, between 90,000 and 166,000 by various estimates. 350 meters from the hypocenter stood the Genbaku Dome, the Hiroshima Prefectural Industrial Promotion Hall, built in 1915. Everyone inside at the moment of the explosion died instantly. The building did not collapse, only because the blast wave passed almost directly downward from above. Today it is called the Hiroshima Peace Memorial. It is on the UNESCO World Heritage List. The museum is right beside it. Here is what about this place is not said in the context of disturbing locations. The Japanese government for decades avoided officially acknowledging the psychological trauma of the survivors, the hibakusha. Many hibakusha faced social discrimination. Employers were afraid to hire them. Families were afraid to let their children marry them, fearing contagion. Some concealed their status until death. The dome stands. Every year on August 6th at 8:15, a bell rings. And what a person feels standing under those charred walls is not what the tourist brochures sell you. It is something else. 6. Futaba Hospital, Namiya, Fukushima Prefecture. Number 6 is not a house. It is a hospital. And what happened here is not a murder story in the conventional sense, but it is a story about people who were left behind, whom no one came to save, and for which no one has ever been held accountable. March 11th, 2011, a magnitude 9.0 earthquake, the tsunami, the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear accident. Futaba Hospital was 4.5 kilometers from the reactor. 338 patients, most of them elderly, many bedridden or connected to IV drips. The authorities ordered evacuation within a 10-kilometer radius. The hospital staff requested assistance with patient evacuation. The requests were not properly processed. Communication between the hospital, local authorities, and the emergency response headquarters had broken down. Transport did not come. Medical staff began to leave, saving themselves. Some stayed. Patients waited. The evacuation took 5 days instead of 1. In that time, 50 people died from dehydration, from hypothermia, from interrupted treatment. The bodies of some of them were found in the wards several days after an announcement had been made that the evacuation was complete. In 2021, an investigation by a Japanese investigative journalist established not one official who made the decisions in those days was ever held accountable. The hospital building still stands inside the exclusion zone. It is visible on satellite images. Inside, abandoned medical equipment, patient records that no one collected. The zone is gradually being opened for visits. 50 people, not one person charged. 5. Aokigahara Forest, the base of Mount Fuji. Number 5 is the only place on this list you can visit right now. Along walking paths, with a map, past the tourist signs. Aokigahara, 30 square kilometers of forest at the northwest base of Mount Fuji. The forest is so dense that the Japanese call it a decay, the sea of trees. The soil here is hardened lava from an eruption in 864 AD. Under the roots, cavities, and caves, cell phone signals do not work. Compasses malfunction due to deposits of magnetic iron in the volcanic rock. If you walk deep inside without a trail marker, there is a real chance you will not find your way back out. Aokigahara is the second most common suicide location on Earth. The first is the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. Since the 1970s, police, volunteers, and journalists have annually combed the forest. They almost never come back empty-handed. In 2003, 105 bodies were found. In 2004, 108. The Japanese government stopped publishing official statistics to avoid drawing new people to the forest. At the entrance, signs read, "Your life is a precious gift from your parents," and a crisis helpline number. Here is the detail that stays with me. Volunteers who enter the forest on search operations report this. Sometimes they find tents. Inside, belongings, food, personal items. No person. They walked further in. Sometimes they are found later. Sometimes never. The forest waits. It is not in a hurry. 4. The Tsuyama Massacre, village of Kaio, Okayama Prefecture. Number 4 is not a house. It was an entire village. And what happened here on the night of May 20th to 21st, 1938, remains the deadliest mass killing by a single person in Japanese history. The village of Kaio, 23 households, around 111 residents, mountain wilderness in the northern Chugoku Mountains. Without electricity since evening, someone had cut the power lines. At 1:30 in the morning, Mutsuo Toi, 21 years old, walked out of his house, 2 flashlights strapped to his head, a shotgun, a katana, and an axe in his hands. Over the next 90 minutes, he moved through 11 households and killed 30 people, including his own grandmother. Before this, he had written 3 suicide notes. In them, the story of his tuberculosis diagnosis, his social isolation, his rejection by the women of the village. The women had refused him because they feared catching the disease from him. At dawn, he walked to a hill behind the village and shot himself. Of the 111 residents of the village, 30 were dead. 3 were injured. The Japanese government in 1938 suppressed press coverage of the event. The country was preparing for war, and stories like this did not fit the official narrative. The Tsuyama massacre only became widely known decades later. The village of Kaio, as it once was, no longer exists. The handful of remaining houses were absorbed into the growing city of Tsuyama. The place where Mutsuo Toi's house stood is today a field. But the story came back. The Tsuyama massacre directly inspired the horror novel 8 Graves by Seishi Yokomizo, and later, the video game Forbidden Siren. 30 people, 90 minutes, and a village that never recovered. 3. Sugamo Prison / Sunshine 60, Ikebukuro, Tokyo. Number 3 is not a house. It is a skyscraper, one of the most recognizable in Tokyo, and most of the people who go there to shop or look out over the city from the 60th floor have no idea what they are standing on. Sugamo Prison, built in 1895. After the Second World War, the place of confinement for Japanese war criminals, convicted by the International Military Tribunal for the Far East on December 23, 1948, 7 Class A war criminals were hanged here, including former Japanese Prime Minister Hideki Tojo. In 1971, the prison was demolished. In 1978, the Sunshine City commercial and office complex opened on its grounds with the 60-story Sunshine 60 skyscraper. At the time of its completion, the tallest building in Japan, the name was chosen deliberately. Sunshine, to overwrite what came before. It worked only partially. Since the building opened, staff and visitors have reported unexplained phenomena, particularly in the underground levels of the complex. Construction workers noted anomalies during the build. Today, on the site of the former gallows in the adjacent Higashi Ikebukuro Park, a small stone stands. Engraved on it in Japanese, "Pray for eternal peace." Most people walk past it without stopping. Every day, thousands of people eat, shop, and drink coffee on an execution ground. 2. Himuro Mansion, Western Tokyo. Number 2 is a story that exists on the boundary between the documented and the legendary. And it is precisely that boundary that makes it singular. Himuro Mansion, the western outskirts of Tokyo. The exact address does not appear in Japanese sources, and that itself says something. According to the account reproduced across dozens of Japanese paranormal websites, the mansion belonged to the Himuro clan, who practiced closed Shinto rituals. Once every 50 years, the family was required to perform the strangling ritual, the sacrifice of several women bound by rope to a central altar to appease spirits haunting the estate. In the late 19th century, the head of the family, unable to bear the accumulated pressure, or having simply lost his mind, accounts differ, killed every member of his family, then himself. When the bodies were discovered, they were arranged as though the ritual had in fact been completed. Now, the disclosure this channel always makes. No documentary evidence of the Himuro family's existence has been found in historical records. The mansion became widely known primarily because of the video game Fatal Frame 2001, whose story is set in a fictional Himuro mansion. The developers claimed the game was based on real events. That claim has never been substantiated. What is documented is the existence of several abandoned estates in the mountain areas around Tokyo, some of which are genuinely tied to tragic histories. Japanese paranormal investigators regularly report visiting one such location, but the address is deliberately kept secret. The building exists or does not exist. The story is real or invented. And every year, new people drive into the mountains west of Tokyo to find it. 1. The soldier who didn't know the war had ended, Lubang Island, and the house he left. Last number 1 is a story that technically did not take place in Japan, but it is about a Japanese home, about a man who could not return, and about how a place keeps living even after the person who belonged to it has gone. Hiru Onoda, Japanese intelligence officer. In December 1944, he was deployed to the Philippine island of Lubang with orders to conduct guerrilla warfare until the last, until he received an official order of surrender from his commanding officer. On September 2, 1945, Japan signed the instrument of surrender. The war was over. Onoda did not know, or did not believe. Leaflets dropped from planes, enemy propaganda, newspapers thrown into the jungle, forgeries, radio appeals from his family, a trap. He fought until 1974, nearly 30 years in the jungle. His fellow soldiers died or surrendered. He did not. He killed local civilians he considered enemies. He carried out sabotage operations. He attacked police outposts. In 1974, a Japanese adventurer named Norio Suzuki found him in the jungle. Onoda agreed to lay down his arms only when his former commanding officer, by then a bookseller living in Japan, flew personally to Lubang and issued the order to cease hostilities. Onoda walked out of the jungle in full military uniform, with his rifle in perfect order. He returned to Japan and discovered that the world he had been fighting for had not existed for 30 years. The house in the Japanese village he left when he went to war, the family that waited for him, the country he knew, all of it was history while he was still fighting. There are places that hold what happened inside them, and there are people who carry the place within themselves. Onoda died in Tokyo in 2014 at the age of 91. His family home in Wakayama still stands. The war for him never truly ended. It simply moved inside.